Welcome to the FitnessFest Podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia, and I'm the president of Time to Train Fitness and KIPS. We have a great guest with us today. We have Dr. Meredith Butulis. I said it, we practiced it before. I'm saying it now because I got it, feel good about it. She is going to take us through her journey through the fitness industry, and to actually kick it off, we have something great that she's going to talk about. She's going to talk about why she picked this fitness comeback coaching as kind of her niche. It's something that really defines her, but it's such a great story to share. Dr. Butulis, can you start by sharing that information? Why do you really hone in on comeback coaching?
Absolutely. Thanks, Tyler, for having me share it with the audience tonight. And I'm happy to share this story. And this story is kind of a new story. And in May of 2020, so middle pandemic, I had a spinal cord injury. Wow. And that diagnosis that followed was quadriplegia, which means you don't really have use of your arms or your legs. Mm-hmm. And having been in fitness in various capacities, fitness is part of my identity and probably part of the identity of many listeners. And suddenly you say, my arms don't work, my hands don't work, my feet are numb. I can't even put my hair in a ponytail. And first of all, that's terribly scary. And second of all, before I scare the audience, I will tell them that, hey, I've made a complete comeback. I am out there competing, obstacle course racing, crossfitting, tumbling, doing gymnastics, doing dance. So yes, I'm totally fine and wonderful. I don't want to scare the audience. But, and it is from a chiropractic accident. And people say, oh, you must hate chiropractors. And I'm like, no, I don't. I really don't hate chiropractors, because you have to realize the risk of that was 1 in a million. It is far less risky than getting in your car. But anyway, it happened. Okay, spinal cord injury, hands don't work, legs don't work. And fitness being my thing, I listened to doctors, I listened to other physical therapists and took their guidance, but also brought my own journey to the table. And I got back to the gym. And I said, well, what can I do? And the first time I went back to the gym and tried to do a push-up with arms that don't work, you can probably imagine how that went. And I kind of walked out of there and I go, I feel like it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it to try. And I don't know, something about the passion for fitness brought me back every single day. And I said, you know what? If it moves, it's going to move. And we're going to move whatever moves in whatever way we can move that. We will strap the TRX to the hands. We will strap the feet into a rower and grab it with my elbows. Like, we are going to make this work. And I started seeing different people around me and realizing, you know what, we're all in the same struggle right now. We are all in places where we say, my body is not where it was a year ago. And we feel like, should we even bother getting back to fitness? And I'd see people come back and they would try, and then they'd be sidelined by different injuries. And I said, wow, everybody needs help, not just me. And that's what brought me back to say, okay, let me use my knowledge. Let me use what my mentors have shared with me to actually help people get back to fitness, not just from a strategic standpoint of how do I do the program design, but mentally too. Like, how do I create a welcoming environment where people aren't comparing themselves to their past selves? And that's where it all came from, is just saying, okay, I want to help other people too on this journey.
I'm actually happy that you touched on the mental side there. Literally 20 minutes before we jumped on this podcast, I recorded a video for the members of the platform of the company that I own. And I asked the question of, what is it that motivates you to and gets you to do that work on the days that you don't want to? So you sharing right there how this injury occurred, and then part of your mental state. I mean, those are things that, especially for a fitness professional, a lot of people don't think about. They just think, oh, they're in the fitness and they just natural. They can do it. They're going to get up and they're going to go to the gym. They don't understand that the struggles from it. Can you share even just a tad bit more about some of those regular days when you're not seeing any type of progress? What was the mental state? Like, what kind of thoughts were you going through?
Yeah, absolutely. There's, a lot of days you'd walk away and you'd say, it's not worth it. I can't. And I finally kind of had a heart to heart with myself. And I said, nobody's going to do this for you. Like, your doctors can advise you and say, this kind of thing is safe or this kind of thing isn't safe. Your physical therapist, even though I am a physical therapist, I worked with another physical therapist, and he was actually the head of spine at a very large organization. And I'm like, hey, I'm an athlete. I have got to get moving again. I am your fellow physical therapist. You've got to help me. And he did. And I said, you know what? They can advise me, but nobody feels what I feel. Nobody is going to do this for me. And every time a thought of, I can't do this crept into my head, I would simply say to myself, nobody's going to do this for you. You have to show up for yourself, and you have to show up for others.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's big right there. That's deep. And, the one of the things that I always think about, and it kind of goes into this, is I'll say that you could take a lot of this and apply it to business. And I think that anybody in the fitness industry probably has a story that how exercise helped them in other capacities. And I'm sure that mindset is something that you share in parts of your business, because it's great that nobody else is going to do this for you. You have to show up and do this if you want to get to some type of outcome. And I think that that's such a powerful thing to share and talk about, especially right now when it's March 2021, almost messed up there. And as a country, we're looking to move things. And as an industry, the fitness industry, we're trying to figure things out. And many fitness pros, they are in a similar boat mentally in terms of they don't know what to do. They think that they just give up. And I love how how this is connecting into the episode, because they have to do it themselves. They have to learn, but potentially a new skill. Maybe that's virtual training. Maybe it's a different part of the fitness industry, but nobody's going to do it for you. That's good stuff. So let's get into some of the more background information on you. Can you share, you shared a little bit already how you're a DPT. Can you share more about your educational background and kind of why you chose that route?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a DPT, a doctorate of physical therapy, and I went to school in the late 90s. And I actually call myself a baby physical therapist because I was accepted into Boston University's accelerated program, which takes students right from high school, no bachelor's degree first, right from high school into the Doctor of Physical Therapy program. So you go straight through the whole program. And at the time, it was actually bachelor's to master's. So I did pre-med health studies into physical therapy. But what they don't tell you about that entry class is that when you are accepted as a young student, that you are held to a much higher GPA standard. And if you mess up once, there is not a warning. You are gone. So I kind of call it physical therapy prison. Like, you are dedicating your whole life to studying and showing up and showing your 3.5 GPA and not falling below a C on any lab practical or exam. And if you do, you're simply gone. So I was a little bit of a slave to education. And I think at first I maybe regretted that. And now I'm an educationaholic and I can't get enough of it. I need to join Education Like Anonymous right now. So graduated, went through my master's, got my license, went into what I thought was going to be my practice. But I graduated with that master's and my physical therapy license at a time in Boston where there were no jobs, none. So I ended up going to work at the local hospital. It was, I think, St. Elizabeth's Hospital, filing medical records. And I was, a medical records clerk, basically. And I'd run the medical records and file things. And discovered that half my classmates were working on various units in similar capacities. And we were all hoping to get that internal job offer if one ever opened. And I said, this is going nowhere. And I ended up talking to one of my teaching assistants from Boston U, and he goes, "You happy with what you're doing?" I'm going, "No, I'm really not, but it's paying the bills." And he said, "I'm a general manager at a gym, big, big, big gym." It was a Wellbridge company at the time. I believe they're still in existence, just in a different reincarnation now. And he said, "Hey, I'm down at Atlantic Ave in Boston, and I'm hiring for a fitness floor instructor and a personal trainer. Would you be interested in something like that?" And I have to admit, back in the late 90s, I had this image in my head of probably the Arnold Classic, most likely. That was on TV. And so I'm envisioning the Arnold Classic. I'm envisioning powerlifting, because I was originally from Ohio. So there's a lot of, you get all the kind of old school gyms out there, those heavy powerlifting gyms. And I literally in my head, I'm like, "So you want me to train a bunch of meatheads?" I'm like, I don't even see how this is possibly going to go well. I'm a 5 foot tall female. How am I going to go train a bunch of meatheads? I've never even been in the gym. I failed gym class twice. Like, I don't know how this is going to go. But you know what? I don't like what I'm doing. So sure, why not? Let's give this a try. And the trainers there, I was hired into a gym of about 200 members total, which is a very small gym. And there were already 7 trainers there. They were not at all interested in having a competitor work with them, because every trainer has their independent clients within that gym, and they were very unsportive, to say the least. But the reason they liked me is because I was hired for the night shift. So I worked from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. plus their Saturday morning. So basically I took over anything that they didn't want to work. So they were like, "Fine, we'll put up with this one." And so my boss goes, "Well, to stay here, you need an ACSM, exercise physiology certification." I said, "Not a problem. I can study. I can do that." So went, got that. And then he goes, "We could really use a Pilates instructor, and Polestar is coming through town, and I'll be happy to send you through the Polestar certification. We'll pay for that." And I go, "You know what? Sounds good to me." So I dove into that opportunity and became a Pilates instructor. And then sometimes people needed some time off for group fitness. And I said, "That looks interesting. I'll try that too."
There we go.
So pretty soon people are saying, I could teach you something about that. I could teach you how to sub my class. And I go, "Great. I'm all ears." So
Nice.
I got a lot of those certifications and the things that help serve in the fitness industry that I didn't even know really existed at that point in time. And I fell in love with it, and absolutely positively fell in love with it. And then my gym closed, and I moved cross country because that gym had caught word that they're like, "No, there's this physical therapist, Pilates instructor, group fitness instructor, somebody that kind of takes care of everything, that loves education and loves presenting and is very didactic, and they could teach." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I like teaching." So they actually moved me to their headquarters to be a personal training manager and a regional educator, and eventually a national educator in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. So moved halfway across the country with a 6-week notice, and got thrown into a club of, I don't know, I believe that thing was 300,000 square feet with probably 30,000 members. And my staff had 26 trainers. And I was like, "Whoa, here we go." So I had to learn pretty fast in order to gain some additional skills. And from there, I became a learning addict. I got a ton more certifications. The doctor of physical therapy came out. So I went back to school to get that doctor of physical therapy while working full time. Then I ended up teaching for another school, and they go, "Hey, we'll pay for you to study something." And I was like, "You guys don't offer a lot, so let's go for something diverse. Let's go for an MBA." So I ended up getting an MBA because they said, "Hey, we'll pay for you to learn something." And I go, "Well, let's learn something." So chose an MBA. So that's a little bit about my education background and journey into actually loving fitness from the business side.
I dig it. I dig it. And I dig all the education, and I dig the application of it. I think that one of the steps that you took that many fitness pros that enter the industry, they start off and they're like, I got my certification. FYI, a certification, especially a personal trainer one, is a entry level certification. But yet there are many fitness pros that believe that that's just what they need, that I'm done, I got it. And especially how you changed careers there and you were open to all these opportunities. I've seen it before when I used to work in facilities, that a trainer comes in, they think they already got it, they don't need to learn anything more, they don't want to take advantage of group fitness when you're in front of a lot of members per day. It's a opportunity that everybody should jump at. That was one of the things that I quickly started doing, even though I'd never done it. It's a similar concept, but it just helps you grow. You get to work on more skills, a lot of the interpersonal skills and speaking in public, which comes in handy if you want to do. How you said, you are a national presenter as well, an educator. These are things that really help grow a career. And so it's great to hear those types of things. And, one of the things along the line, and I'm sure that you'll want to share about this, is the idea of a mentor. And how that plays into, I'm sure at multiple stops, you might have had one or two mentors. Did you have anybody that really helped you out that kind of said, here, take this, grow with it, or how about try this instead of that? Is there anybody that helped you along the way?
Absolutely. I always say that I pay it forward to my mentors, and I truly mean that and believe that. I don't just say that. And I have to say that I haven't had a formal mentor. Like, I didn't go and sign up for a mentorship. Mm-hmm. But one of my talents is I'm not afraid to ask. I'm not afraid to be rejected. I'm not afraid to be ignored. I'm not afraid to be told no. And because I was willing to ask, I found some informal mentors, some just for a day and some for longer periods of time, that made a world of difference for me. So, for example, I was at Stuart McGill's presentation, and Stuart McGill is just a world-renowned scientist and educator for back health. And I was sitting in his continuing ed class, and I got to lunch, and I go up to him and I go, hey, I don't know if you'd be interested in this or not, but I got a lot of questions for you. And he's a very, almost a little bit of an intimidating presenter because he has a lot of authority and a lot of experience. And I said, could I take you to lunch in exchange for answering some questions that are burning holes in my head about the back and back patients and clients? And he looks up and he goes, sure.
Awesome.
So I was like, all right, great. I get to ask Stuart McGill questions for an hour. And an hour of his time is like, it's like a whole textbook coming out at you. So it was amazing. So I said, yeah, you know what? I love learning. And that was just like a year of brain food, or maybe like 10 years of brain food all in one lunch. So that was fantastic. I think another time I went to Aaron Matty's, who's, the founder, the inventor of active isolated stretching. And I went to his seminars, and after that, I took the technique back, and I was working on a patient with a rotator cuff problem that nothing had worked for. And I was like, I went to this continuing ed over the weekend. You open to trying something else? And she goes, well, nothing's working, so let's try. And it worked for her. And I happened to be working on my doctorate at the same time. And I was like, do you mind being my patient for my doctoral dissertation? She's like, no, I'm happy to do that too, because this works. And that was interesting. And she liked education as well. So I reached out to Aaron Matty's and I go, I need a mentor. Would it be okay if you mentor me on this technique in this project to finish my doctorate? And sure enough, he writes back to me and he goes, sure, no problem. So, he helped me out for a couple months while I worked on that. And I learned a lot about his techniques and how they could fit in with my techniques. And just along the way, I've reached out to different professionals over time, and I go, hey, can we talk about this? Could we do this together? And a lot of times people don't answer me, but every once in a while they do. Mm-hmm. And I think I've paid that forward to some of my students as well, because if people ask me, hey, could you help me with XYZ? And it's something that I know something about, I say, sure, why not? And I actually ended up hiring 2 of my interns over time. So they actually got their jobs because they reached out to me and they said, hey, can you help me with this? And then they kept coming back. They're like, hey, can you help me with this? And sure enough, when a job opened up, I was like, you can probably help you with that too.
Nice. Yeah. It's one of the common things that I've seen in my years of being a professional is that many high-level professionals, executives, people with status, there are a lot of good ones out there that are, I'll say, genuine and enjoy the process of giving back. Just how you explained there, that you like to pay it back, give back the information. And many of also even my current mentor now, that he is a high level executive. He's actually not in the fitness industry, but he's a very high level businessman. And I've noticed that with other high level executives is they do the same. They have no problem helping others out if they see that individual is also genuine, that they honestly want to grow, they want to listen. They're not there to waste anybody's time. They honestly want to get something out of it. And so to hear that story about Dr. McGill, even though I've never had any conversations with him, nothing of that sort, I've only heard very similar stories, that he's just a nice guy, always willing to help others. And a buddy of mine that was actually a FitnessFest speaker last year, he as well had a similar situation. He just reached out to Dr. McGill and he replied, and they just shared a phone call. And I'm not saying go do that because he's a very busy guy, but when you hear stories like, what? Like, you're like, I got to figure out a question now to ask Dr. McGill. And to kind of play a little funny story into this is that, and it sounds like you're the same way with this, that when you meet somebody in the fitness industry that, as probably Janice Jakes would say, that I would nerd out on is, for me, it's Dr. Len Kravitz. And I just think he's such a knowledgeable and great educator, and the way that he gives back to the industry, that the first time that I met him, it was I'll say it, I was a fanboy. And it's like, what? Like you're at a conference speaking as well, and you got all like nervous to meet him. It's like, yeah, I did. And Janice basically took me over to his room. This was about 2 years ago. Took me to where he was speaking. His session was just finishing, and I just got all excited. But then after that, we connected. I was speaking at a different conference with him, and we just, we chatted for probably 45 minutes. And then he's also been on the FitnessFest podcast. And it's just one of those things where when you meet these great educators, when you see how much they give back, it almost makes you want to do it too. You want to give back to the next generation of fit pros as well, because then they'll do it. And that just creates a lot of positivity, which I love to hear within the industry. Next question for you now. So we built a little base here. We got your educational background, got a little story on your career path, where you started, all the different changes that you had within the industry. Now, if you were just starting now, let's say that prior to the degree path at Boston, I don't want to say Boston College if it was BU. I hope I'm saying the right
BU,
word.
Boston U.
I knew it was going to come through. But what would you tell the younger you right now? If there was a piece of advice, what would you tell the younger you, and kind of what do you wish you knew about the industry getting into it?
Well, the first thing I would say is that it isn't about meatheads. So I had no idea. I didn't even know in the 90s that fitness was really encompassing of anybody that wanted to move or feel better or have a better mindset in any way. But the biggest thing I would say is looking at today's setup and looking at how social media works and what kind of influences are out there today. don't be satisfied with superficial. And what I mean by that, you kind of alluded to it, one fitness certification is your ticket in the door, but it's very superficial. It's very basic. And everything on social media, it's really easy to get distracted by the shiny new objects and the cool looking exercises. But one of the biggest mistakes I made in the first year of my career was trying to come up with a bunch of cool exercises. And really, it's not about that. I mean, you do have to have some interesting looking things to keep people entertained so they don't just say, this isn't for me. But you also need to have the solid program design. And yes, once you know your acute variables, so your sets, your reps, your tempos, your time under tension, all of that, you've got a good foundation. You understand how to move forward and deliver predictable results. But there are so many ways to achieve a goal that if you keep your eyes open, there is not a day or an hour that should go by without you having a question about why is something working the way it's working, or why is this working for this client but not this client. Those questions are always there. And when I work with my patients, when I take on students, I go, if you did not learn something from that patient or client within the hour, or you did not come up with a question, you were not listening. And I apply that same rule to myself. And I go, if I didn't come home with at least 8 questions today, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't in the moment.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. And I just want to throw one thing on top of that because it popped in my head with it was really knowing the basics, the fundamentals of lifting. And a great piece of advice that I got years ago, and it really helped my career and I know we've been joking about meatheads, but I started powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and really just honing in on the basics, your squats, your deadlifts, your bench press, and understanding all the little items. It's not as much as just, okay, I'm just going to pick this bar up, or I'm just going to put this bar on my back, and understanding the mechanics, understanding your body type, and then now taking that information, applying it to your clients, or if you're in a group setting. Oh my goodness. When you individualize an exercise for a client, their perspective of you just skyrockets. They know you build that credibility right there because you helped shape an exercise for them based off their body type, because everybody's different. And when you make these changes in that type of setting, you're building credibility, you're standing out. And that's what, has always stuck with me. And, you're spot on with, you see so many things on social media and you see the flashy things. And it's one of those things where I always come back to even though I know that on my social media, I post some flashy things, but guaranteed, I also did some fundamentals during that workout. I did do some deadlifts or squats or something along that nature. So it's always great to know those because they're big lifts, very important lifts, and the foundation of an entry-level certification. And if you don't go into those more, because you think about it, you got a page and a half inside of an entry-level textbook. That's what you're going to learn about a squat. That's all you think there is? Absolutely not. There's so much more to a squat. So keep going with that stuff. I love it. So let's go kind of back to where we started now, talking about the business stuff, and really, how we started off talking about the comeback coach. And I love the start for that. And, that's your niche for it. And what was kind of the process for getting that ball rolling? Was there kind of okay, you just went through it, now you want to share it? And then was there a kind of, okay, I think I have something along the lines once you started seeing feedback?
Yeah, so it actually builds off of what you were talking about with the squat and the basic lifts. Is after I had kind of started seeing what was going on around me, realizing everybody's struggling right now. Everybody's getting these new bizarre injuries from trying to come back too fast or in new ways. I had actually worked with some other therapists who were having their own struggles coming back from injuries. And one of them asked me a question. They said they were kind of new to CrossFit. And they asked me a question about, when am I going to master? I can't even remember which exact lift it was, but I think it was actually the lift off for, the deadlift or the bear lift complex. And I remember looking at her and I go, never. I go, once you think you know the alignment, that's the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like you can think about this in so many ways. We can cue internal, we can cue external, we can add this band. Once you really got it, then we can start adding the breathing and the timing and the release. So then you can get the reps without exhausting yourself. And it's like this journey that you've started is endless.
Oh, yeah.
So I started talking with some other professionals, about, what were they seeing or what did they think they had mastered? And I started realizing those gaps. And I realized, okay, there's gaps in the coaching. Like how many different ways can I interact to create that user experience? Like you mentioned the group fitness. And I go, they're there for the user experience. They walk away going, aha, this was so amazing. But yet they don't even know why. But there's a good chance that, it was partially in the environment and your energy, but it was how you cued them so that they felt good moving in their bodies. And they didn't even connect A plus B. They were just like, oh, teacher told me to do that, so I'm going to do that. And then all of a sudden they had this breakthrough and they're like, ooh, I do have sore glutes today. That's kind of nice. I like feeling that work. But they don't even know what the magic was. And I said, okay, let's break down this magic. So how are we cueing things? What are those options? What are those ways to phrase things? What are those different ways to interact with the environment? And then I got into the program design and I go, what do fitness professionals need to know so that they don't become the internet trainer looking for shiny objects? And then I got back into the science and I go, there's some great 2020 science about returning from COVID, returning from time away from fitness. And I go, you know what? The typical fitness provider, unless they also have a doctorate, is not going to be able to read this. Like I literally had to sit there and read these pages over and over and over again, and even talk to some other professionals. I was like, okay, I really want to talk to an exercise physiologist right now. So I had to put my head together and then say, okay, how do I break this down and make this so a typical fitness professional, new entry-level provider could easily say, here's what I do, here's how I do it, let's go. So then I broke down all the program design and the comeback timeframes. And clients just want to know, when am I going to get there? But it's not as easy as saying that. So I was like, how do I make this easy? How do I make this tangible? And then how do we get into lifestyle coaching? And then how do I translate this online? And then how do I create group cohesion online? So I looked at all the different elements that people were struggling with or think they knew everything about. And I broke it down into chunks. And I was like, okay, here we go. Here's how we do the coaching. Here's how we do the lifestyle coaching. Here's some templates for the program design. Here's how this can work. Here's what you need to know about this to adapt it to an individual. And that's where the whole certification ball got rolling with the fitness comeback coaching cert that I wrote for IFSA, that's a 16 continuing education unit comeback coaching certification, which is, I'm pretty psyched about it right now, actually, because I was like, everybody needs this.
Nice. Yeah, it's a process. And I think that this is something I've said in the past. I don't know if I've said it on a podcast, but I feel like gaining momentum, gaining success in an industry, it's your ability to accomplish large tasks. And for you shared a lot of those little steps in there. How do I, figure out how to make this online? How do I write this in a way that an entry level instructor can understand all those little steps? Those are all little barriers that you have to figure out, accomplish to just get the ball rolling. And I think for myself, one of those big steps was essentially learning how to build a learning management system on a WordPress-based website. And once I figure out how to do that, it just became, my mindset changed, that I was like, okay, I can do this next thing. I can do this next thing. I can learn how to do this, because you kind of gain some confidence in yourself with these big projects and the ability to accomplish them, that it just translates into other items. And so it's always great to hear other fit pros taking big steps, big leaps, big risks in order to push themselves forward in the industry. One of the things that, in getting prepared for this podcast, and I started to joke more about these in podcasts, how there is a preparation phase for a podcast. It's not just like, hey, Dr. Butulis, you want to come on this podcast? Okay, just tune in. Let's start going. There's questions that I give her, and there's stuff that goes on to make sure that it just sounds good, all this kind of stuff, so that when our audience hears it, boom, looks good, sound good, all that kind of good stuff. So then the preparation for this episode, I saw that you do a podcast as well. And I think that that's something to share, because with podcasting, I always say it is such a great way for fit pros to build some type of community, but also a way to bring in other factors. That was something that on a different podcast that I host, a guest shared that how she now brings in international guests to talk about a specific thing. How do you feel like podcasting helped your business grow, and how does it kind of fit into your business?
Yeah, my podcast, it's fitness lifestyle for busy people. And it originated from my patients, actually, because I work face-to-face with people in a brick and mortar building. And a lot of my patients wanted more. They said, can you coach me in fitness? Can you coach me in lifestyle? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I was like, wow, I can't be everything to everybody, even though I want to honor all the mentors that have shared different kinds of things with me to allow me to wear many hats. And they wanted me to share with their coaches. They wanted me to share with their friends. They wanted me to share with people that weren't able to access my services, either because of their geography or the fact that to see a physical therapist, you got to be injured or have had surgery. So if you don't have an injury and you don't have surgery, I am off limits to you. So I said, I don't want to feel like I'm off limits for people. I did not get into this industry to create the barriers. I got into this industry to try to dissolve the barriers. Mm-hmm. So I actually created the podcast for them so they could share it with their friends and their family and their coaches and their kids and people that wanted more knowledge on fitness or nutrition. Or I do a ton of comeback coaching. So people that have, really faced some huge challenges and they want to share their story. They want to share their inspiration to help others. And that's where the whole thing came from. The first season was focused on more the consumer, the community. And the second season that we're in the middle of recording right now is focused more on fitness professionals themselves. Like we just recorded an episode the other night on burnout. Like how do you come back from burnout, especially if you're in a kind of a caregiver fatigue situation. And we're recording a bunch more. We just did one on some of the hot nutrition topics. And I do want to share this with everybody listening to this podcast, is if you have a comeback story to share, you have a niche, absolutely reach out to me, because I take guests onto the podcast and I am happy to share whatever your take on fitness is right now. So if you have a story or if you have a topic that you say, wow, I wish more fitness professionals knew about this topic, I would love to have you as a guest. And yes, I do allow you to promote whatever thing you are doing right now. So if you're transitioning into online training, you want more people to do your group fitness, great. I am happy to give you a shout out for that too. So everybody listening, if that's your thing, you like to talk, message me.
I will say that I think it was 2019. I got this tip from, I'm trying to think of where I got it, but I obviously have to get more information from other professionals in the marketing advertising world, because that's not where my background is in, but that was one of the big ones. Start podcasting, go on podcasts, because not only for the reasons that you just mentioned there with getting the promotion, being able to talk about your views, all those kinds of things, but on the back end of it, when things get linked back, those are very big for businesses, especially small businesses that have credibility, that are linked to other websites. If they throw your link in there, it's so good for your business. I can't say it enough. Then those are very hard to get. So take her up on that. Reach out to Dr. Butulis and go on her podcast. talk with her. It's great beyond of all the items that we just talked about. So I'm trying to guess right now, estimate how long we're in this episode, but the ability to keep a conversation going like this for this long, it takes skill, it takes practice. You don't just jump on a podcast and it just naturally flows out like this. I've had guests on a podcast where sometimes it's a little bit more. You got to pull it out of them. And so it takes skill, practice it, grow with it, and you never know what's going to come from it. So let's wrap this baby up. Dr. Butulis, can you tell people where they can find you, about your website, social media links, and any upcoming speaking events that you got?
Absolutely. So first of all, this being the FitnessFest podcast, I will see you at FitnessFest virtually, talking about injury prevention. And I believe I'm going to be doing one more as well. I like to keep it practical. I like to keep it relevant. I like to keep it actionable. So if that's your thing, I will be talking at FitnessFest virtual coming up here on April 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, that kind of weekend. Mm-hmm. And as far as reaching out to me, a couple great places you can reach me. If you're on Instagram, I have my handle, Dr. Meredith Butulis. So that is Dr. And then my full name all strung together. So it's Meredith, B like boy, U, T like Tom, Ulis like Sam. And if you are not an Instagram user, you can, on Facebook, have just an open group where we can talk about all things fitness, mindset, nutrition. And that is called Fitness Focus Fuel. And that is a completely open group on Facebook. If you are looking for a website and want to find other social media, and you want to know a little bit more about my background, that is just the http:// my name. So meredithbutulis.com. And that will link you into whatever else you are looking for.
Awesome. Great stuff in this podcast. Lots of tidbits for Fit Pros to take away, but also just sharing your journey. I think that's one of my favorite parts of doing this podcast for Fitness Fest, is just talking about the individual's journey. And that's really where this originated with. Everybody starts in a different path. I'll tell you that nobody has had the same journey as you. And it's always great to hear how you got to where you are now, education-wise, all that kind of great stuff. So check her out at Fitness Fest coming up.
Can I share one closing thought?
Please do.
I have a quote I'd like to share with everybody, because so many times we come on podcasts or social media and we share journeys and we share successes. But I will say I fail every day. Okay? Every day. And what I would share about that is failure is not your destination. It's your journey. Mm-hmm. So I want to share that with everybody, because I know, especially 2020, 2021, everybody's feeling isolated. They're feeling confused. They're feeling down on themselves. And it's okay. It's normal. And we're all there. And if we're not failing together, we're not learning. Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Learning is very important, and I appreciate you sharing that as we wrap this baby up. Thank you all for listening. Remember, this is the Fitness Fest podcast, and we'll catch you next episode.